I had always known my GP as a professional, a man of precision and logic. He had treated me and my family for years, never once stepping beyond the walls of his clinic. So when he called one evening, asking if he could visit my home, I was taken aback. He didn't sound urgent, yet there was something in his voice, something unspoken. I hesitated before agreeing. Maybe it was a follow-up regarding my recent checkup, or maybe he needed a favor. Either way, I couldn't shake the feeling that this visit wasn't ordinary. When he arrived, he looked different. Gone was the white coat and clinical demeanor. He was dressed casually, his face carrying a warmth that felt unfamiliar. I invited him in, offering him a seat in the living room. He accepted the tea I made but barely sipped it, as if his mind was elsewhere. The silence stretched, and I felt an urge to fill it. "So, what brings you here?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He sighed, tapping his fingers against the cup. "I've been debating whether to tell you this for a long time," he said finally. "I know you trust me, and I value that trust. But what I have to say, it may change a lot of things for you." His words sent a ripple of unease through me. I leaned forward, my hands gripping the armrest. "What do you mean?" He set his cup down, eyes locking onto mine. "It's about your family." My breath hitched. Of all the things I had expected, this wasn't one of them. My family? What could he possibly know that I didn't? He hesitated, as if choosing his next words carefully. "Over the years, I've come across something unusual. Something that concerns you directly." A lump formed in my throat. He wasn't just making conversation, he was leading me toward something big. "Just tell me," I urged. He inhaled deeply. "Before I do, I need you to understand that I didn't keep this from you out of malice. I was bound by certain obligations, and I had to be sure before saying anything." The air in the room grew thick. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it a medical condition? Something genetic? A mistake in my records? Before he could continue, my phone buzzed loudly on the table, shattering the moment. I ignored it, my pulse quickening. "Go on," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He studied me for a long moment, as if gauging whether I was truly ready for what he was about to say. Then, finally, he spoke. "You're not who you think you are." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as I tried to process what he had just said. "Not who I think I am." What did that even mean? My mind scrambled for an explanation, but nothing made sense. I forced myself to speak. "What are you talking about?" He leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Your medical records, they don't match what they should." I shook my head, confused. "What do you mean? I've been coming to you for years. You've done my checkups, my tests. How can they not match?" He exhaled slowly, his hands clasped together. "That's exactly why I needed to be sure. I ran some quiet verifications over time, cross-checked details. And what I found, it doesn't add up." My stomach twisted. 100 scenarios flashed through my mind, each one worse than the last. "Are you saying I'm sick? That there's something wrong with me?" "No," he said quickly. "It's not that. It's bigger than that." I felt a chill creep up my spine. "Then what?" He hesitated, as if debating how much to say. "I've known your family a long time. I was there when you were a child. I've seen your records since you were born. And there's something missing, something that should be there, but isn't." A sharp breath left my lungs. "Missing?" He nodded. "Blood type, genetic markers, they don't match. Not just in a small way. In a way that makes it impossible for you to be biologically related to the parents you've known all your life." His words sent a cold shock through me. I stared at him, struggling to breathe. "That's not possible." "I triple-checked," he said gently. "I even pulled old hospital records. The birth certificate, the documents, something is off. I don't know if it was a mistake, an intentional swap, or something else entirely. But I do know that the people you believe are your parents, they're not." My body felt numb. My entire life, every childhood memory, every moment shared with my family, was it all a lie? I wanted to deny it, to argue, but the certainty in his voice crushed any hope that this was a misunderstanding. Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, barely recognizing my own voice. Because I couldn't keep it from you any longer, he admitted. I had to be sure, and now I am. You deserve to know the truth. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to steady my breathing. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. But deep down, something inside me cracked, because a part of me had always felt different. I swallowed hard. If they're not my real parents, then who am I? His gaze darkened, and for the first time since he arrived, I saw hesitation. That's what we need to find out. A deep silence settled between us, but my mind was anything but still. Questions clawed at me, each one more unsettling than the last. If my parents weren't really mine, then where did I come from? Who had kept this secret buried for so long?
And why?
I struggled to form words. There has to be an explanation. A mix-up at the hospital? A clerical error? His expression remained steady. I considered that. But the inconsistencies go beyond paperwork. Your DNA doesn't match either of your parents. That's not a clerical error. My stomach churned. So you're saying I was switched at birth? It's one possibility, he admitted. But I don't have enough information to say for certain. What I do know is that someone, somewhere, knows the truth. My mind raced back to childhood, searching for signs I had never thought to question before. I had always felt like I belonged, but now, doubts seeped into my memories. Little moments, times I felt different, times I overheard hushed conversations, suddenly took on new meaning. I clenched my fists. Did my parents know? His silence was answer enough. I felt anger surge inside me, burning away the numbness. How long? My voice was sharper now, demanding. How long have they known? His hesitation was brief. I can't say for sure, but based on what I've found, I'd say a long time. Betrayal hit me like a hammer. The people who raised me, who claimed to love me, had they really kept this from me all these years? I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I shot to my feet, pacing as emotions warred inside me. This doesn't make sense. Why would they lie? Why would they never tell me? There could be many reasons, he said gently. Maybe they wanted to protect you. Maybe they were afraid of what the truth would do. Or maybe, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Maybe they were never supposed to have you in the first place. The weight of his suggestion hit me like a punch to the gut. Not only was I not their child, but what if I was never meant to be? I stopped pacing, my voice low. Are you saying I was stolen? His lips pressed into a thin line. I don't want to jump to conclusions. But if you were switched intentionally, then someone out there is missing a child. And that child was supposed to be you. A sickening realization crept over me. If my real family was out there, did they ever search for me? Did they even know I existed? Tears burned my eyes, but I pushed them back. I wasn't ready to break.
Not yet.
I turned back to him. If there's a truth to be found, I need to find it. He nodded, as if he had expected this response. Then we start now. I sat in silence, my mind unraveling everything I had ever believed about myself. The past felt like a puzzle with missing pieces, and now that I knew the truth, I couldn't look at my life the same way. But knowing wasn't enough. I needed answers. I turned to him, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. How do I find out who I really am? He exhaled, as if relieved that I was ready to face it. There are ways. DNA databases, birth records, even speaking to your parents, if they're willing to tell you the truth. The thought of confronting them made my stomach tighten. Would they admit it? Or would they deny it, burying the truth deeper? A part of me wasn't sure I wanted to hear their explanation. I clenched my jaw. And if they won't talk? He hesitated before answering. Then we go around them. Medical records from the hospital where you were born, any inconsistencies in government files. There's always a trail. I nodded, determination settling in my chest. If my life had been built on a lie, I wasn't going to live in ignorance any longer. But a new fear crept in. What if the truth was worse than I imagined? What if the people who brought me into this world had abandoned me? What if they weren't looking for me at all? I swallowed hard. What if I find out something I don't want to know? His gaze softened. That's a risk. But isn't not knowing worse? I let out a slow breath. He was right. No matter what I found, at least I would know. At least I would have control over my own identity. I stood up, the weight of my decisions settling in. Then let's do it. Let's find out who I really am. A small nod of approval. I'll help in any way I can. For the first time since this conversation began, I felt a sense of clarity. The truth might break me, or it might set me free. But either way, I wasn't running from it. I walked him to the door, my pulse steady, my mind focused. As he stepped outside, he turned back one last time. No matter what you find, remember, you are still you. The door clicked shut, leaving me alone with a life I no longer recognized. But I wasn't afraid, because this was just the beginning.